According to a YouTuber called The Electric Viking, Porsche are in real difficulties, are facing an imminent crisis, and losing a lot of money. And if they don't turn around this ship quickly, they're gonna lose out to brands like Zeekr and Xpeng. Take a listen to this.
Porsche executives are having emergency meetings, it's said by German media, crisis talks. They believe the company is facing imminent difficulties, and they didn't expect this to happen, but electrification, the rise of Chinese EV companies, the rise of companies like BYD and other premium brands is really hurting the Porsche brand. Why would someone buy a Porsche if you can buy a Zeekr 001, a Zeekr 7X, an Xpeng P7 Plus? Why would you buy a Porsche Taycan for double the price when it's not as good?
Yeah, I don't even know where to start. And guys, I'm not a guy to create drama or to beef with other YouTubers, but if it's a car with bad functions, if it's a car manufacturer saying something stupid or implementing something dumb in a car, I'm the first person to call it out. And I have a real good track record on this channel for, calling bullshit out for bullshit. And I have to say, when I saw this video yesterday, pouring myself a cup of coffee, sitting down on my sofa, this just didn't seem correct at all. A lot of what the Electric Viking talks about is reporting from other news outlets, but a lot of it is just like, where do you get this information from? Because it's so blatantly false and wrong that to anybody, it doesn't seem right from the onset. And then we have claims this guy makes about Porsche products and Chinese car products, which really got my blood boiling and pushed me over the edge to make this video. So I'm going to link the original video down below so you guys can go watch that. But without further ado, let's jump into more of the claims and address them one by one. Now, this isn't a personal attack on this YouTuber called The Electric Viking. Actually, I've seen quite a few videos of him over the years, and normally all he does is report on things in the electric car market, which I think is fine. I think that's a good thing to do. But it's when you represent things falsely. I mean, we're all guilty here on YouTube and on social media platforms for making thumbnails, making titles that, seem clickbaity or sensational. And that's part of the game, to get clicks. Like, I have an ongoing video series on this channel called Worst Things About a Car and Best Things About a Car. So somewhere in between like 5 and 10 things that I don't like about a car, where it's called the worst things about this car. And also I have, the counterpart of that video called the best things of this car. And there's no, hiding the fact that the negative videos always get a lot more views than the positive. But I think me representing both sides of the case, I'm doing the product due diligence. It's up to you what you watch. And also, I may, have a title called terrible, but there's always something in that video that substantiates that title. For me, that is important. And there are always a lot of people who are commenting like, you're an idiot, this isn't terrible, without watching the video and without, even seeing my opinion. So before, I made this video, I watched this video several times. I sat on it for like a day, and before I started making this video, I tried to fact check and research of my own. So for this specific video, I think he got a lot of things wrong, but he's also done that in the past with other videos. And it's when you insert your own opinions that I think meritocracy is very important. And what I mean about that, on my channel, I've tested more than 100 or close to 100 electric cars the past 4 years. And every car, almost every car, goes through several thousand kilometers of testing. I do my range test, I do my long trip test, and a lot of cars I take on a road trip. And what I do through the first videos, I do the range test, then I'm only reporting. Like, I'm reporting, I'm documenting what range the car gets and all the calculations. And then I'm like giving my opinion on things like ride comfort and NVH levels, my first impressions. And then I'm reporting on how many minutes the cars have to charge when they're going through the long trip test, which is a test that I do over 600 kilometers, where the point of the test is to complete that route with the shortest charging time possible. And because no electric car today, at least sold here in Norway or in Europe, yet is able to travel over 600 kilometers with an average speed of close to 100 kilometers an hour without stopping to charge, we always have to stop and charge. And that is also reporting. The last video I always make on the car, there may be a few exceptions, but a video I always make at the end of my loan is my review, because then I've been able to sit on all my impressions for a week. So maybe something that I was annoyed about or something that I liked in the beginning of the loan could change, right? So for me, it's important that I have all of these videos on my channel because it documents my level of knowledge. It documents my level of experience. And when I talk about a product, either it's a Porsche or an Audi or Volkswagen or a Volvo or a Tesla, when I talk about ride comfort or NVH levels or interior quality, it's always comparative to other cars. It's always in the context of all the cars I've tested. So I think for me and for car reviewers, for us to have, the credibility, for you guys to be able to trust us, I think that is very important. And to my knowledge, the Electric Viking may be great at reporting. He makes a lot of videos, about news from the electric car market, which I'm not an expert on. But from what I could find on his channel, he has 0 to very little reviews or tests. I don't think he's ever driven any Porsches on his channel. I found a Zeekr video, and also he drove a Polestar 2 rental car a few months back. But in my opinion, when you have such a big following, a much bigger following than I have, it's important to speak correctly, to represent the products as accurately as possible. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to just address what he says, because I'm not going to he may have knowledge about market analyses that I don't, but I can Google and I can get the reports, and some of these reports, the numbers he's talking about, losses, and that Porsche are actually losing money, yeah, I couldn't find any credible information to support that.
Keep in mind, I did report yesterday that Porsche is saying it will have to write off up to $22 billion in the Volkswagen Group in losses.
I'm by no means an expert in accounting or economics, so please correct me down below if you have more knowledge, which you probably have on this subject than I have. But my only gripe with this is the wording in the context of the video and the tone, because just watching the video as a casual viewer, it sounds like Porsche are losing money. But from my research, reading a few different articles and trying to, paint the picture of this, we're talking about Porsche's investments into electrification in the Volkswagen Group and the evaluation, the market evaluation of that investment, which has been written down in value. So it's much like, when the media says Apple is the biggest company in the world, and then, they show their financials, and then maybe the stock prices goes up and down, the actual evaluation of the company goes up and down. They're not in reality making or losing money, because when you're talking from a business perspective, making and losing money, you're talking about operating income and deducting your operational costs from your income. That's losses and gains from, a layman perspective. So Porsche aren't actually losing any money. The books aren't red. And also, the amount of the write-down seems to be different from news outlet to news outlet, because nobody knows specifically how much, the evaluation has to be written down. But on the low end seems to be around 7 billion euros to 22 billion euros on the high end. So quite a wide range of potential write-down. And talking about losses and profits, you have to look at car companies in the long term, not like quarterly or not like just a few less months or whatever, because to look at the health of a company, you have to look at it on the long term. And Porsche, since the mid-90s, has been increasing sales and profits year on year. It's well known in the car industry that Porsche are one of the most profitable car makers ever. They make a lot of money. And when I, saw this video, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense at all. And when we look at, for example, 2023 as a whole, we don't have numbers for 24 yet because, well, we're still in 24. But last year, Porsche made 7.3 billion euros in operating profits, alone. That is 18% return on sales. They had a sales revenue of 40.5 billion euros, which was up 7.7%.
Porsche sales declined by 42% in the third quarter of this year. It's not selling anywhere near as many cars as it used to, particularly in China, where it is about to shut down 40 different dealerships. The Porsche Taycan is a slow seller. Its sales have fallen by, I believe, about 90-something% this year.
The last report, quarter 3 2024, shows that sales may actually be down, or up until that point in time, sales were down about 5 or 6%. Not a huge amount, but also we have the new Macan coming at the end of the year. We have the old Macan stopping sales in Europe, and also we have the issue in China where sales are also down like 30 or 40%. But China isn't a huge market for Porsche, and what I could read from the report, most of that is the Panamera. So I don't know, they dropped like the Sport Turismo body style of the Panamera, and maybe we're gonna see different versions next year that can pick up sales. So just looking at year on year and comparing this year till the last year and just declaring Porsche as, you know, sales failure, yeah, it just seems very, very odd. And also Taycan sales aren't down 90%. I don't know where he has that number. They're down 50%, which is still a lot, but it's still the least sold Porsche model with 14,000 sales up until quarter 3, or including quarter 3 2024. So on the whole, it seems like Porsche, yes, may be selling less cars in 24 than in 23, but we still don't know until, you know, we have all the sales of the new Macan, which actually may bring, you know, sales up from last year, or at least till the same point. But then we have the next year's coming. We have a new Cayenne that's going to be launched. We have a new Panamera that's going to be launched, and then the new Macan. All of these electric, a new electric Boxster. We're going to have sales of internal combustion engine cars alongside electric cars for at least 5 to 10 years, depending on the market. So Porsche are making a lot of money. Yes, sales may be down a little this year, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be making less money.
Now, numerous media outlets in Germany have reported on this news. There's not just one. Automobile Watch, that's a very prestigious media publication as well. The car manufacturer Porsche is facing major challenges, they're saying. As Automobile Watch reports, the company is struggling with considerable sales problems, especially in the very important Chinese market. In the first 9 months of 2024, Porsche only sold 43,000 units there. That's a decline of 30%. Porsche is one of the car manufacturers with the most ambitious climate protection goals. Porsche's ambitious electric strategy is encountering obstacles in Europe and the USA. There are plans to completely renew the Cayenne platform. The Porsche Cayenne is obviously the biggest money maker for the company, and possibly produce the Porsche Taycan in Leipzig in the future. Chief Financial Officer Lutz Mischke announced that the company's cost structure would be geared to sales of 250,000 units per year. In terms of sales figures, a reduction of 20% would be necessary. This could mean that more than 8,000 of the current 42,000 jobs are at risk, according to numerous media sources. There is currently no concrete plan for job cuts, but it is expected Porsche is saying they need to cut costs, and this is one of the only ways that they can do it. It's either that, or they simply try and produce a lot more of the vehicles that they're making outside of China, produce them in China, where it's much, much, much cheaper.
So now we get to the title of the video, the sensationalism or the clickbait, like, if you want. And by his own admission, nobody has said that 8,000 jobs are going to be lost. I think this is more like a projection. If sales continue to decline 5% year on year, like they have potentially for this year, what's going to happen? That may mean that, well, we're going to see sales of 250,000 vehicles in 2029, in 2030, if sales continue to decline. So it seems like this was just maybe some kind of worst case scenario meeting that the media got a hold on and just blew out of proportions, because by all accounts, it doesn't seem like Porsche are going to be losing money in the long term. And I don't think they're going to be declining in sales in the long term. And also, it was kind of confusing the way he worded it, but I think he meant like if this continues, Porsche have to be ready to produce, instead of 320,000 vehicles last year, maybe in 4 or 5 years, they're only going to be making 250,000 vehicles, and they have to account for cutting production. But it also seems like, from what I could read from some of these news articles, is that Porsche aren't actually able to produce as many Taycans as they want now, because the Taycan is built on the same production line in Zuffenhausen as the 911. I've been to the factory, or at least I stood outside of the factory under the pandemic, meeting with the spokesperson for the Panamera and the Taycan, Mike Wienkötter. And he pointed up to the production line. He's like, you know how many meters the production line is? I'm like, I have no idea. It's like 911 meters, because that's where they produce the 911. So from what I can report is that in 911 sales are up like 20% so far this year. Taycan sales are down. So they're just prioritizing 911 production than Taycan, of course, since they can't deliver enough 911s, and that means cutting production of Taycans and the sales being further down. So it all depends on like how you look at it. Also, like, you have to report both sides to give the complete picture.
The point is here, Europe, there's around 15 million cars sold per year. China, it's 30 million. That's 45 million out of a global car market of 80 million. And that is where about 65 to 70% of Porsche sales come from, China and Europe. Now, if those places are not buying EVs, if those places are not buying internal combustion engine vehicles, what is Porsche going to sell? The Porsche, the appeal of Porsche is the internal combustion engine. It's the naturally aspirated Porsche GT3. Get one of those and you have the emotional experience, the visceral emotional experience. But that's the problem, because Porsche makes the majority of its income, around 90%, from selling SUVs, internal combustion SUVs.
So this last segment I want to address just seems weird, because he seems to be contradicting himself several times. Like, on one side, he's like, if Porsche don't make sports cars, what are Porsche going to sell? But on the other hand, he says like, well, Porsche don't make money on sports cars, so they have to make electric Cayennes and electric Macans and electric Taycans and Panameras. And that's their plan. Like, I don't believe that we're going to see a 100% ban on internal combustion engine cars in Europe, or maybe anywhere in the world. Yes, these are going to be more niche cars. Like, we didn't kill all the horses when we stopped using them, like in the early 20th century for transportation, right? We still have horses. Yes, it's reserved for hobby and for special interest and for the rich. And I think internal combustion engine cars have been moving towards that for many years. For example, here in Norway, I think of all new cars sold, we're at almost 100% electric, battery electric, fully electric. Nobody drives internal combustion engine cars here anymore, or at least buys new ones, unless you're rich or you have a special interest in that. For everybody else, it's going to be an electric car. And if you want your sports car, they're still going to permit selling a small amount of sports cars every year, because that's not the contributor to the climate problem, to global warming. It's not those few Ferraris or Lamborghinis they sell, comparatively to all the, what was it, 80 or 90 million cars sold every year. Those 10,000 Lamborghini, Huracans or whatever, is such a small fraction. So I think the future of Porsche is bright. We're going to see all of these new cool electric cars, the new Cayenne, the new Panamera, the new Boxster and Cayman. I can't wait for those. And also, we're going to see 911s in the future, probably electric, and probably also internal combustion engine RS versions. We're still going to have the best of both worlds. We're just going to have the majority of normal transportation moving into pure electric cars.
Why would someone buy a Porsche if you can buy a Zeekr 001, a Zeekr 7X, an Xpeng P7 Plus? Why would you buy a Porsche Taycan for double the price when it's not as good? Clearly not as good.
Now, this is where Sam completely loses me, completely loses it, and in my opinion loses all if he had any credibility when it comes to testing and reviewing electric cars. And I think I'm going to make, my own video on this alone, because this is just so mind-boggling and dumb. And to say something like this with such a huge following and reach that he has, I just think it's irresponsible. Like it's insane. But okay, to give you guys some context, I've owned a Porsche Taycan for 3 years now, done almost 50,000 kilometers. I've driven all the Taycan variants in Norway, in Germany, across Europe. Like I've so much time and experience under my belt when it comes to the Taycan, the Audi e-tron GT, which is its cousin, the Audi e-tron, all the other Audi models, and a lot of different Porsche models, and also Geely models like Polestar and Volvo I have a lot of experience with, like the SEA platform that the Zeekr 001 is built on. I've driven the Polestar 4, which is a very close relative to the Zeekr 001. You could argue that the Polestar is just a Zeekr 001 with a Polestar suit on. They are so closely related that the development of the Polestar 4 to make it fit the European market is hard for the engineers. I went to Gothenburg, to Polestar headquarters, and spent a whole day with the product manager of the Polestar 4 and the ADAS team. I have all of this on video, where they talk about these Chinese systems, the hardware and the software just isn't made for our European way of driving, how Europeans want cars, and makes it difficult to make the Polestar compete with the European products because it's fundamentally not as good. This is from the engineers themselves, the people making the cars. You don't have to take my word. And the fact that, like, there's no Zeekr. Yes, I haven't driven the 001 or the 7X, but I've driven the Polestar 4. I've driven the Xpeng G9. And the Xpeng G9 may be the best Chinese product out there, but it's not close to like an Audi Q8 e-tron or a Mercedes EQE when it comes to driving dynamics, when it comes to the luxury of the ride, the way the car feels. Like all of these things that German engineering is known for. They're not on the same level. Yes, the Chinese offer range, they offer battery performance, even charging performance and features for a lot of money. The same way the Koreans did 10, 20, 30 years ago, or the Japanese 50, 60 years ago. This is a known strategy when you're entering as a new car manufacturer with no legacy behind you. You have to compete on price, you have to compete on features and performance. And that's what the Chinese are doing. But other than that, there's no comparison between a Zeekr 001 and a Porsche Macan. And it's not half the price. Yes, you can if you want, if you pile on crazy options, if you go for a turbo with like the stitching in a different color and leather on the seat base and just all the crazy options in a Macan compared to a Zeekr with similar performance. But if you choose like a reasonable spec car, the Porsche is gonna be more expensive, of course, but the Porsche is going to offer a such nicer interior, nicer exterior if you want. Also, much better driving dynamics and handling and ride comfort, and it's just a completely different experience. And there's nothing in this day and age that rivals a Porsche in the way it drives and feels. And this is hard to convey on camera. When I went to China, to Shanghai earlier this year with Xlantics, a Chery Group brand that's coming to Norway next year, we talked a lot about this. I spoke to a lot of the the engineers and product managers, and also other like journalists. And the Chinese way of marketing cars is on features, and that works in China because China is such a young market, and young Chinese buyers don't care as much about brand legacy, maybe brand prestige, as we do here in Europe. And that's to their advantage and maybe to our disadvantage. But Porsches and other German luxury manufacturers and other luxury manufacturers are aspiring products. This is why the Americans have never been able to compete with the Germans when it comes to product, Cadillac or Lincoln or whatever. And the Chinese, they can try and they can make good products, but part of the thing of the appeal of a Porsche is the price and the exclusivity and the fact that you can, if you want, spend a lot of money and get crazy options and customize things. That's part of the appeal. That's part of the product and the experience. And thinking that Porsche is going to fail because that's their strategy, I think you fundamentally just don't understand that part of the car market, which is fine. but maybe you should reserve judgment. So guys, this has been a crazy video. Let me know down below what you think. Do you agree with Sam and the electric Viking? And you know, no shame on him, but I think like we disagree here on several things. So let me know what you think down below. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.